One of the earliest stages for infants that is recognizable and so important is what is called mirroring. In cognitive and behavioral development, mirroring is when a child sees something in you and then mirrors it. Most of us have had the experience of looking at an infant and smiling, and then seeing the infant smile back because of the smile that is on our face. If an infant hears someone crying or laughing, they will often repeat what they are hearing. Speaking as a parent, it's both delightful and frightening to think that we become mirrors for our children. It's incredible to think that they can look at us and see how deeply we love them. They can also see when we are afraid, or when we're angry, or when we're really happy. Yesterday, I overheard a conversation at a family gathering between my brother-in-law, Russ, and Jeanette's Aunt Tina. Leon, our nephew, who is 8, was climbing a tree and got high as usual. Leon is, I would say, a bit of an unusual kid in terms of his agility and strength and balance. He can do things that I think a lot of 8-year-olds are not able to. And so Tina was worried because it was her backyard and her tree that Leon was pretty high up in. So she said something to Russ, and Russ wisely turned away from the tree so they were both facing this way, and Leon was up in the tree behind them. And Russ said, when Leon was really little and would do all of these dangerous things, I learned very early on that as soon as I got afraid and showed Leon that I was afraid, he would be, and then an accident would happen. So I've learned over the years to not show when I am afraid, and he's had very few accidents. Now, I've seen this kid do things, and I have to turn away and be quiet because I can't believe the things he's doing. But Russ realized the mirroring that was happening early on that would cause Leon to then stumble or fall off of or out of something. Mirror neurons, not specific to infants and babies and then toddlers and children. We all have them. It's part of why you can watch Rachel Maddow at night and see how angry she is about something, and then you can suddenly feel angry and your face even looks angry. You mirror what you are seeing. I wonder how many of us had beauty mirrored to us and for us. When you look into the faces of your family, did you see them seeing you as beautiful? It's a complicated question for sure. Any of us who had siblings and who were siblings recognize how awful we often are to each other at different times in our growing up years. I had one sibling who pronounced that she was the standard for beauty in our family because of her blonde hair. I could never match her beauty in that way, and I was made to know it. I wasn't really into beauty, so I focused on my sports and my academics and my leadership and my social life. But as much as I think that I didn't care about beauty, I internalized some of the messages around it. I bought into some of the cultural and Western and white standards of beauty. I never wanted to wear makeup, and I hated dressing up, and especially wearing dresses. I used to stay home from school on Fridays because that was dress day at my school. Instead, I wanted to be really tall and strong and athletic, and I was told that guys wouldn't be into that look. If only I had known then how little that would matter. I wish I had known. Is beauty really so be about how one person looks in the eyes of another person? Whatever any of us were taught about beauty, we have all gotten caught up in one point or another in what Ursula Le Guin calls the beauty game. In an essay titled Dogs, Cats, and Dancers, Thoughts About Beauty, she writes, "Beauty always has rules. It's a game. I resent the beauty game when I see it controlled by people who grab fortunes from it and don't care who they hurt. I hate it when I see it making people so self-dissatisfied that they starve and deform and poison themselves. Most of the time, I just play the game myself in a very small way, buying a new lipstick, feeling happy about a pretty new silk shirt. One rule of the game in most times and places is that it's the young who are beautiful. The beauty ideal is always a youthful one. This is partly simple realism. The young are beautiful, the whole lot of them. The older I get, the more I see that and enjoy it. And yet, I look at men and women my age and older, and their scalps and knuckles and spots and bulges, though various and interesting, don't affect what I think of them. Some of these people I consider to be very beautiful, and others I don't. For old people, beauty doesn't come free with the hormones the way it does with the young. It has to do with bones. It has to do with who the person is. More and more clearly, it has to do with what shines through those gnarly faces and bodies. I love what she says about young beauty and old beauty. Even more, though, I appreciate that she names the beauty game. We've been fooled into thinking that beauty involves humans and human bodies. Don't we know in the depths of our being that beauty does not center around or even in humans? I would take looking at a sunrise any day over looking at a so-called beautiful person. How do you think of beauty? Where do you look for it? How much is it a part of your day-to-day living? We're beginning a 3-week sermon series that will cover beauty, awe, and wonder. It seems to me we have lost some appreciation for each of these in our pandemic, Zombie, sweatpant-wearing days. Zombie is my new word for how Zoom turns us into zombies. Zombies. You can borrow it if you'd like. Last week in my sermon, I said that we can cry out to God, and that if we are truly awake, we ought to be crying out a lot these days, and that at the same time, we can practice gratitude. I said that gratitude reminds us there is a much bigger and more complete picture than what we tend to focus on at any minute. I could say the same for beauty. Our world, our lives, our relationships are a mere shadow of what they could be if we are not looking for and naming and feeling the beauty around us. I was inspired by my dear friend, the Reverend Lisa Largess, who did this 3-week series at her church in Minnesota over the summer. In her conversation about beauty, Lisa pointed out that as a blind person, beauty takes on many new dimensions. Those of us who are sighted tend to think that beauty has to be seen. We forget that beauty can be heard, can be felt, can be tasted and smelled. The smell of a baby's head is beauty. The sound of owls hooting is beauty. The touch of an old, gnarled tree trunk is beauty. The taste of a fresh, ripe peach is beauty. Most advertising is geared towards sight. One of God's greatest gifts to us is human cognition and awareness and mirror neurons and a created world that is waiting for our noticing. Our spiritual lives are incomplete and shallow if we are not students of beauty in the same way that they are if we are not students of gratitude. To notice and be aware of beauty using our 5 senses is to live more fully. The Bible is a bit odd when it comes to beauty, and I chose a couple of interesting examples and then an anti-example. I bet you can guess which one was the anti-example. The Isaiah text describes an interesting experience of beauty. How beautiful are the feet on the mountains of those who bring good news. We can almost imagine a tribe of people waiting for the messenger whose feet on the mountain will eventually come, and the news will either be good or bad. And then the messenger can be seen in the distance shouting the good news. Water has been found, or we won the war, or the neighboring tribe wants to have us for dinner. That can be taken a couple of different ways. Here and now, we wait for the messenger's feet on the mountains bringing the good news that COVID is all but gone, as are the variants. We've rejoiced in the good news of the doctor who appears on the mountain, whose feet bring the good news that cancer is gone, or the surgery went just as it was supposed to. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Such a deep experience of beauty. The Luke text is both invitational and deep. You can worry, or you can consider the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. Luke makes a comparison that would have certainly gotten the attention of the hearers. Even Solomon in all of his glory is nothing compared to the lilies in all of their beauty. We might not be able to appreciate the comparison, but if you think of the most beautiful person at the recent Met Gala in New York City, or the most beautiful celebrity you can conjure, imagine that person being compared to a flower in a field that is almost a weed, but not quite, and then hearing that the flower is far more beautiful than the person. The question is, will we consider the flowers? Will we consider the birds? In order to do so, we have to get outside. It requires some time, some stopping of forward movement. Once we begin to notice, it becomes clear why Luke would give the most beautiful award to the flowers. The anti-example of beauty comes from 1 Peter 3. Instead, make yourselves beautiful on the inside, in your hearts. Now, this is addressed to women, mind you, with the enduring quality of a gentle, peaceful spirit. Here, quiet. This type of beauty is very precious in God's eyes, for it was in this way that holy women who trusted in God used to make themselves beautiful, accepting the authority of their husbands. This was clearly an attempt by some men to control the women who were around them by defining beauty as gentle and peaceful, which also means quiet and not challenging of the authority of their husbands. I reject this attempt to control. To say that this type of beauty is precious in God's eyes is offensive. Who are we to know what kind of beauty is precious in God's eyes? Those of us who are white in this country that has been built on Christian and white supremacy have to be careful to reject all notions of beauty that would be geared toward white people, including what my sister would have claimed, that people who are blonde are more beautiful. When we are told that someone or something is beautiful, we have to ask, according to whom? And for what purpose is this being said? I have never in my life been quiet. So does that mean I am not beautiful because of what 1 Peter 3 says? I mean, don't answer that out loud. In a column last week in the New York Times by Jane Brody titled How to Age Gracefully, which Keiko sent to me, Jane Brody talks about the things she's trying to do in her life to age gracefully in order to not repeat the mistakes of those who haven't aged gracefully. She describes the dance of trying to figure out what she can still do and what she can no longer do in her 80s. She still gets up on a step stool to reach things in the higher cupboards in her kitchen, but she is making sure that the step stool is very sturdy and that she isn't just using a chair that could tip over. Her children wanted her to stop driving when she was in her 70s, but she had never had an accident, never received a ticket, and so she traded in her old minivan and bought a safer car that has additional safety features for her aging. In her column, she writes, I also strive to say something flattering or cheerful to a stranger every day. Every day. It brightens both of our lives and helps me focus on the beauty around me. Part of her strategy for aging gracefully is to engage in a practice that brightens her day and helps her focus on the beauty all around her. She has made it a goal to say something flattering or cheerful to a stranger every day. How can we make beauty, the noticing of it and the naming of it, a practice for every day? Imagine what it could do to your relationships, either with friends or with your partner or your family members, if every day you noticed something beautiful about them. It doesn't have to be body related. It could be something they did or said or created or cooked. We could also make this a practice for our spiritual lives. It's different from gratitude. With gratitude, we often thank or appreciate God for something. With beauty, we can simply offer up what we have noticed. God, this tree is beautiful. This yarn that has been spun and woven and dyed is beautiful. This ear of corn that grew against all odds and is now in its silken wrapper is beautiful. This cat with its random splotches that look like paint and fur that feels like silk is beautiful. The idea with implementing a beauty practice is that the more we notice and name the beauty all around us, the more we notice. Beauty, when we use our 5 senses, feeds our souls in deep ways. My friend Lisa describes the research she has done throughout her life as a blind person on what beauty looks like. As various people have described things, she said she realized over time that it's quite complicated, and everyone has different opinions about it. One friend would say, these colors go together, while another friend would say, oh no, those colors don't go together. One friend would say, these patterns go together, while another one would say, oh, don't ever mix those patterns. She learned to ask a variety of people and not to rely on just one person's thoughts about what beauty looked like. Her wisdom is wisdom for all of us. Because of our culture's obsession with beauty and youth, let's go back to Ursula Le Guin. She observes that the transformations of aging are anguishing, not because of the loss of beauty, but because of a loss of identity. She writes, I know what worries me most when I look in the mirror and see the old woman with no waist. It's not that I've lost my beauty. I never had enough to carry on about that. It's that that woman doesn't look like me. She isn't who I thought I was. We're like dogs, maybe. We don't really know where we begin and end. In space, yes, but in time, no. A child's body is very easy to live in. An adult body isn't. The change is hard. And it's such a tremendous change that it's no wonder a lot of adolescents don't know who they are. They look in the mirror. That is me? Who's me? And then it happens again when you're 60 or 70. Who I am is certainly part of how I look and vice versa. I want to know where I begin and end, what size I am and what suits me. I'm not in this body. I am this body, waist or no waist. But all the same, there's something about me that doesn't change, hasn't changed through all the remarkable, exciting, alarming, and disappointing transformations my body has gone through. There is a person there who isn't only what she looks like, and to find her and know her, I have to look through, look in, look deep, not only in space, but in time. There's the ideal beauty of youth and health, which never really changes and is always true. There's the ideal beauty of movie stars and advertising models, the beauty game ideal, which changes its rules all the time and from place to place and is never entirely true. And there's an ideal beauty that is harder to define or understand because it occurs not just in the body, but where the body and the spirit meet and define each other. That must be what great artists see and paint. That must be why the tired, aged faces in Rembrandt's portraits give us such delight. They show us beauty not skin deep, but life deep. As we go out into the world this week, how can we mirror for all we meet how much we value their life-deep beauty? Amen.